The emergency session of the Galactic Council filled the vast chamber with tension and raised voices. Representatives from over 300 species occupied the tiered seating, many shouting demands for information or expressing outrage. The central projection showed a human vessel, the mining ship Prospector, docked alongside a trinary trading post at the edge of the capillary system. "This is unprecedented," bellowed Delegate Kyung, the massive representative of the Vorathi Dominion. His translucent skin pulsed with angry red patterns. A Level 7 quarantine has never been breached before. How did a primitive mining vessel penetrate our most sophisticated containment system? The council elder, a wizened Jorat with pale blue skin, raised a three-fingered hand for silence. Commander Tahoe will address the council regarding the containment failure. Tahoe stepped onto the speaking platform, his posture rigid with shame. The disgrace of being the first containment commander to lose control of a quarantined species weighed heavily on him. "Esteemed council members," he began, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil, "the human vessel employed a unique detection algorithm that identified pattern inconsistencies in our projection fields. They specifically targeted the junction point between sectors 9 and 10, where our barrier matrices overlap with a slight phase variance. This weakness was considered negligible given the technological capabilities of quarantined Earth." "You underestimated them," Kyung interrupted, "as we all feared would happen." Tahoe inclined his head in acknowledgement. "We did. Their adaptability exceeds all projected models." The elder gestured toward the central display, which now showed images of humans interacting peacefully with the insectoid trinary. "What troubles me more is their current behavior. We quarantined humans specifically because their historical records showed extreme xenophobia and aggression toward those unlike themselves. Yet these initial contacts show no signs of the violence we anticipated." On the trinary trading post Harmonious Exchange, Dr. Juhan was experiencing the most extraordinary moment of her life. She stood before a delegation of trinary, their chitinous bodies gleaming under the station's lights, their compound eyes studying her with what she hoped was curiosity rather than hostility. "We welcome exchange of goods and knowledge," the lead trinary said through a translation device, its mandibles clicking gently. "Humans are unknown to us. Many questions we have." Juwu nodded, trying to contain her excitement. "We have many questions too. We had no idea other intelligent species existed so close to our solar system. Why have we never detected your communications or vessels before?" The trinary's antennae twitched, an expression of discomfort Juwu was learning. "This question has complexity. Perhaps speak of trade first." Captain Lee stepped forward with a sample case. "We've brought various raw materials from our system: titanium, platinum, some rare earth elements. We also have data storage devices containing samples of human music, art, and literature for cultural exchange." The trinary examined the offerings with obvious interest, particularly the data storage devices. After conferring among themselves, the lead trinary approached again. "Acceptable goods. In exchange, we offer basic star charts and translation matrix upgrades. Also," the trinary hesitated before continuing, "information you should possess. About the stars. About why humans have been alone." Hours later, Juwu sat in stunned silence as she reviewed the information the trinary had shared. The trading species, uncomfortable with deception, had revealed the truth about Earth's isolation. The artificial barriers, the Council's decision centuries ago to quarantine humanity, the entire galactic civilization that existed just beyond their reach. "We need to return to Earth immediately," she told Captain Lee, her voice tight with emotion. "Everyone needs to know about this." Back in the council chamber, the debate had grown heated. "The trinary had no right to interfere," shouted one delegate. "They violated council directives by sharing restricted information with a quarantined species." "The trinary follow their own ethical codes regarding truthfulness," countered another. "And we cannot change what has happened. The humans now know of our existence." Admiral Doyen, newly appointed to replace Tahoe as head of containment, stepped forward. Tall and imposing, with sharp features and cold eyes, he commanded attention immediately. "Honorable council members," he began, his voice deceptively soft. "This situation, while unfortunate, remains manageable. The breach involves only one small vessel with a limited crew. We can easily isolate and eliminate this singular point of contact before the information spreads to the wider human population." A murmur ran through the chamber at his blunt suggestion of elimination. "You propose violating our most basic ethical protocols regarding sentient life?" asked the elder. Doyen's expression remained impassive. "I propose protecting galactic stability. Humans have been quarantined for good reason. Their history is filled with conquest and violence. If they enter galactic society, they will inevitably seek to dominate, as is their nature. A small preemptive action now prevents a much larger conflict later." The prospector's return journey to Earth was tense but uneventful. Ju spent the time studying the star charts and information provided by the Trinary, occasionally glancing nervously at the small Trinary emissary who had volunteered to accompany them as a goodwill ambassador. "Your people prepared defenses," the Trinary, who called himself Koro, observed. "Wise, though sad necessity." Captain Lee nodded grimly. They had detected several vessels following them at a distance, council ships, according to Koro. "Will they try to stop us from reaching Earth?" "Unknown," Koro replied, his mandibles clicking softly. Council divided on human question. Some fear, some curious, some wish friendship. Ju looked up from her data pad. "But they've been watching us for centuries, keeping us isolated. Why?" Koro's antennae drooped slightly. "Fear of difference. Humans adapt quickly, fight fiercely, build rapidly. Council fears these traits. Trinary understand. Difference brings strength when shared." When the prospector finally approached Earth orbit, they were met not by the expected mining authority vessels, but by a hastily assembled international military escort. Somehow, word of their discovery had preceded them. The global response to first contact unfolded with surprising unity. Political leaders, typically divided by national interests, found common cause in addressing what many called the greatest revelation in human history. Emergency sessions of the United Nations convened as Ju, Captain Lee, and Koro testified before an assembly of world leaders. "They've been watching us, containing us, for generations," Ju explained, her voice carrying through the hushed chamber. "But now that we've broken through their quarantine, we have an opportunity to join a galactic community, if we approach this wisely." In the weeks that followed, humanity demonstrated an adaptability that shocked even those council members who had studied them for centuries. Linguists worked around the clock with Koro to master the basics of common galactic languages. Engineers began adapting Trinary technology principles to human manufacturing capabilities. Diplomats drafted proposed treaties and trade agreements based on the limited information available about galactic political structures. In the council chamber, Admiral Doyun watched the proceedings with growing frustration. His proposal for immediate containment had been rejected in favor of a wait-and-observe approach championed by more moderate council factions. "They are already forming alliances," he warned during one session, displaying images of additional human vessels meeting with Trinary traders. The Trinary have provided them with communication frequencies that allow them to bypass our monitoring systems. They are speaking with the Lentari, the Mox Collective, even the Juno Confederation. Species who have historically opposed council authority are rushing to establish relations with humans. The elders studied the evidence with concern. "Your predecessor, Commander Tayo, has submitted his findings on human adaptation capabilities. It seems they are advancing their understanding of galactic technology even faster than our worst projections suggested." Doyen's eyes narrowed. Tahoe's failure allowed this situation to develop. His assessment can hardly be trusted. Nevertheless, the elder continued, "His report indicates humans possess remarkable collaborative intelligence. They appear to value knowledge exchange over conquest, at least for now. Perhaps we should consider official diplomatic contact rather than continued attempts at isolation, and invite the disease further into the body, Do-hyun muttered, just loudly enough to be heard. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ju-woo found herself unexpectedly elevated from obscure researcher to one of humanity's key figures in the first wave of galactic diplomacy. Working alongside Koro and a growing number of alien visitors, she helped establish the first human diplomatic corps, specifically trained for interspecies negotiation. They underestimated us because they only saw our conflicts, she told a classroom of hastily trained diplomats. But our greatest strength isn't our capacity for war. It's our ability to learn, to adapt, to cooperate across differences when we need to. Those are the qualities that will earn us a place in this new community. As human ships ventured farther into nearby systems, guided by their new allies, Admiral Do-hyun watched from the shadows. The Council may have chosen patience and diplomacy, but he remained convinced that humanity represented an existential threat to galactic stability. If the Council wouldn't act decisively, perhaps other measures would be necessary. Humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage had only just begun, but already the ripples of change were spreading through civilizations that had known stability for millennia. For better or worse, the quarantine had failed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The orbital station New Horizon hung above Proxima Centauri, a testament to humanity's rapid expansion into the stars. Just 5 years after Dr. Ju Han's fateful discovery, humans had spread to 12 nearby star systems, establishing research outposts, mining operations, and small colonies. This particular station served as both a scientific base and a crucial supply hub for human expansion efforts. Inside the station's command center, Governor Junho Kim studied the latest updates from Earth with a furrowed brow. The political situation within the Galactic Council continued to deteriorate. More debates, more delays, he muttered to his chief of security, Colonel Park. Half the Council wants to formally recognize human sovereignty, while the others still treat us like a containment breach to be managed. Colonel Park nodded grimly. And the Dravians grow more hostile by the day. Their representatives have walked out of 3 consecutive council sessions. The Dravian Empire, a militaristic species that dominated nearly 30 star systems, had emerged as the most vocal opponent of human integration into galactic society. Their physiology, thick exoskeletons, multiple limbs ending in natural weapons, and specialized warrior castes, reflected their cultural emphasis on strength and dominance. Latest intelligence suggests they're mobilizing their border fleets, Colonel Park continued. Our Trinary contacts believe they may act independently of Council authorization. Junho sighed. Then we continue preparing. Has the new adaptive defense system been fully integrated? Final calibrations completed yesterday. It's unlike anything in known galactic technology. The Trinary engineers were quite impressed. This was humanity's pattern across all their new settlements, adapting and improving upon the technologies shared by their allies. While most species in the galactic community specialized in particular technological niches, humans demonstrated an uncanny ability to combine disparate technological approaches into innovative new systems. The defensive network protecting New Horizon represented one such innovation, combining Trinary sensor technology, Lentary energy manipulation principles, and human machine learning algorithms to create a system that could analyze incoming weapon signatures and reconfigure shields in real time. Across the station, technicians monitored communications, scientists continued their research, and everyday life proceeded with the busy optimism that characterized human expansion efforts. Few suspected that their defensive innovations would soon be tested. On the Dravian command vessel Inevitable Conquest, Supreme Commander Vorex addressed his battle group commanders, their exoskeletons gleaming in the ship's harsh lighting. The Council's weakness disgusts me, Vorex declared, his translator rendering his clicking speech into the galactic standard language. They debate while the human infection spreads. Their outposts multiply. They reverse engineer our technologies with impunity. They form alliances with dissident species who have always challenged proper order. He gestured to a holographic display showing the human station orbiting Proxima Centauri. This forward base is their most vulnerable position. We will strike here, eliminate the human presence, and demonstrate to the galaxy what should have been done from the beginning. The Dravian commanders clicked their mandibles in agreement, battle pheromones filling the chamber. Their defenses are primitive, the weapons commander noted. Standard energy shields, basic point defense systems, nothing that can withstand our phase disruptors or quantum torpedoes. Vorex's compound eyes gleamed. Begin the attack sequence. No warnings, no demands for surrender. Total elimination is the only acceptable outcome. Back on New Horizon, an alert sounded at the sensor station. A young technician's eyes widened as she called out, multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the system edge. Configuration matches Dravian war vessels. Colonel Park immediately activated the station's alert system. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Civilian personnel to designated shelter areas. Defense teams stand by. Governor Junho rushed to the command center as the station's lighting shifted to emergency protocols. How many ships? 7, Colonel Park replied, studying the tactical display. 1 dreadnought class, 4 cruisers, 2 support vessels. Significant firepower. Junho's expression was grim but determined. They're not here for negotiations. Activate all defensive systems, alert Earth, and nearby human outposts. The Dravian vessels approached with the confidence of experienced predators, their formation perfectly executed to maximize weapon coverage. They had conducted hundreds of such operations against lesser species who defied the Empire's interests. This would be no different. Weapons range in 30 seconds, reported the Dravian tactical officer. No defensive measures detected from the human station. Commander Vorex clicked in satisfaction. Commence primary attack sequence. The dreadnought's main weapons charge, emitting an ominous glow before releasing a barrage of energy pulses toward the seemingly defenseless human station. Aboard New Horizon, Colonel Park watched calmly as the incoming attack registered on their sensors. Adaptive defense system engage. Rather than raising visible shields, which would have revealed their defensive capabilities, the system allowed the first volley to approach before activating a precisely calibrated energy field. The field didn't simply block the Dravian weapons, it analyzed their energy signatures, frequencies, and delivery methods in microseconds. The Dravian weapons struck the suddenly materialized shield and were absorbed rather than deflected, their energy dispersed harmlessly across the shield's surface. On the inevitable conquest, confusion spread across the command deck. Impact confirmed, but no damage registered. The weapons officer reported incredulously. They appear to have some form of advanced absorption shield technology. Vorex clicked angrily. Impossible. Adjust frequencies and fire again. Full spread. The Dravian vessels unleashed their secondary weapon systems, a more diverse array of destructive technologies designed to overwhelm standard defenses through variety rather than pure power. Aboard New Horizon, the defense system's artificial intelligence processed each incoming weapon signature, learning and adapting in real time. Shields reconfigured at speeds no manual operator could match, creating specific energy matrices to counter each type of attack. The system is performing beyond expectations, Colonel Park noted with professional pride. Shield integrity at 92% despite sustained bombardment. Governor Chuno nodded. Time to show them humans don't just defend. He turned to the weapons officer. Target their lid cruisers' propulsion systems. Precise strike. We don't need to destroy them to make our point. New Horizons weapon systems came online, another human innovation combining technologies from multiple species with unique human approaches to targeting. The station fired a concentrated beam that slipped through a gap in the Dravian vessel's shields, precisely striking its engine housing. On the disabled Dravian cruiser, panic spread as systems failed, and the ship began to drift. Nothing in their intelligence had suggested the humans possessed such precise and effective weapons technology. Commander Vorik stared in disbelief at the tactical display. How is this possible? Their technology should be centuries behind ours. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. 2 more Dravian vessels suffered targeted system failures before Commander Vorex ordered a retreat, his mandibles clicking furiously in humiliation. News of the failed Dravian attack spread rapidly through galactic communication channels. For the first time, a primitive species had not only withstood a Dravian assault, but had effectively countered it without suffering significant damage. In the Galactic Council chamber, the political implications unfolded immediately. Delegates argued vociferously about the meaning of the confrontation and the unexpected demonstration of human defensive capabilities. Admiral Doyun watched the proceedings with cold calculation. The Dravians had blundered badly, attempting a direct assault when subtlety was required. If humans were to be contained or eliminated, more drastic measures would be necessary. The Proxima Centauri incident proves what I have warned about, he told a private gathering of like-minded council officials. Humans adapt too quickly. They take our technologies and improve them in ways we never considered. If left unchecked, they will upset the balance of power that has maintained galactic stability for millennia. One official, a representative from a species known for their caution, asked, "What do you propose, Admiral?" The council remains deadlocked. Doyun's expression hardened. Some situations require action, not debate. I have access to technologies developed for planetary quarantine that could be repurposed. On Earth, Dr. Zhu Han had risen to become director of the newly formed Earth Defense Initiative, coordinating humanity's security efforts across their growing interstellar presence. The successful defense at New Horizon validated her approach of combining open technological exchange with humanity's unique innovative patterns. The Dravians expected an easy victory, she explained to the Global Security Council. What they encountered instead was humanity's greatest strength, our ability to learn, adapt, and improve upon existing technologies. A senior military officer raised a concern, but this was just one battle group. Intelligence suggests the Dravians are mobilizing larger forces, and there are whispers of faction within the council itself planning more drastic measures. Chu nodded gravely, which is why we've been developing an early warning network with our Trinary and Lentari allies. Any large-scale movement toward human space should trigger. An aide rushed into the chamber, face pale with urgency. Director Han, our deep space monitoring array has detected an unknown object approaching the solar system. It's massive, accelerating toward Earth trajectory, and emitting energy signatures unlike anything we've encountered. Zhu immediately accessed the data on her terminal, her expression growing increasingly concerned as she analyzed the readings. "This isn't Dravian technology," she said quietly. "This matches Council containment protocols, specifically a planet-scale quarantine device." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Someone on the Council has authorized the use of a planet killer against Earth, Zhu stated, her voice steady despite the horrifying realization. "And based on the deployment signature, I believe it's Admiral Doyun, acting without full council authorization." She rose from her seat, already formulating a response plan. Humanity had proven its adaptability in countless ways since joining the galactic community. Now they would need to adapt faster than ever before, with the very survival of Earth hanging in the balance. The emergency session of the Galactic Council descended into chaos. Representatives shouted over one another, pounding appendages on desks and releasing stress pheromones that filled the chamber with a noxious mix of scents. At the center of the storm stood Admiral Doyun, his face impassive despite the accusations being hurled at him from all directions. "You deployed a planet killer without authorization." The Trinary representative's translator barely kept up with his agitated mandible clicks. "This violates our most sacred protocols." The elder raised all 4 arms for silence, but the tumult continued unabated. Centuries of orderly governance had collapsed in the wake of Do-hyun's unilateral action against Earth. The humans neutralized the device. Do-hyun stated coldly when he could finally be heard. Which only proves my point about their dangerous capabilities. They shouldn't have been able to detect it, let alone disable a technology that took our finest minds centuries to develop. That is not the issue. The representative from the Lenteri Confederation, a longtime moderate voice on the council, floated forward on his gravity disk. You acted without council approval. You attempted genocide against a sentient species. This cannot stand. The debate raged for days. Recordings of the failed attack spread across galactic networks. The footage showed Earth's defense systems, coordinated by Dr. Ju Han, detecting the approaching planet killer device and deploying a hastily assembled countermeasure, a network of field generators that created a phase-shifted containment bubble around the weapon, neutralizing it before it could activate its primary systems. What impressed many across the galaxy wasn't just that humans had stopped the attack, but how they had done it, not with superior firepower, but with innovative application of technologies they had only recently acquired. Even more surprising to many species was that human authorities had broadcast their defensive solution to all inhabited worlds, freely sharing the technology that had saved them. This knowledge belongs to everyone, Ju had declared in the transmission. No species should face extinction because of the actions of a few. In the council chamber, the final vote was closer than many expected. 43% of representatives stood with Do-hyun and his hardline position that humanity represented an existential threat to galactic stability. 57% voted to condemn his actions and formally recognize human sovereignty. The elder announced the result with evident relief, but Do-hyun merely smiled thinly. This council has existed for 50,000 years, he said quietly. Today, you have broken it. He turned and left the chamber, followed by representatives from 18 species, including the powerful Dravian Empire. By nightfall, they had issued a joint declaration forming a new alliance, the Galactic Protection Concord, dedicated to preserving the proper order of civilization against destabilizing influences. War didn't come immediately. For several months, both factions engaged in frantic diplomacy, trying to sway neutral species to their respective sides. Human representatives, led by Ju, traveled to dozens of worlds, demonstrating their willingness to share technologies and collaborate equally rather than dominate. The Dravians and their allies took a different approach, emphasizing stability, tradition, and the protection of established hierarchies. On many worlds, their arguments resonated with ruling classes who feared the social changes that might come from human-style innovation and adaptability. The first shots of the conflict came not at a military target, but at a joint human trinary research station studying stellar phenomena in a previously uninhabited system. A Dravian battle group destroyed the facility without warning, killing 27 researchers of various species. A necessary preventative action, the Dravian High Command declared. The facility was developing weapons technology disguised as scientific research. Evidence later revealed the station had been studying stable wormhole creation, a technology that could have revolutionized galactic transit but threatened the Dravian control of key trade routes. The galaxy erupted into open conflict. The Dravians and their allies controlled more territory and possessed larger military forces, but the human-led coalition demonstrated unprecedented coordination and tactical flexibility. 6 months into the war, Ju stood on the bridge of the Harmony of Worlds, a massive vessel constructed through joint efforts of 7 species. As the flagship of the Allied fleet, it represented a new approach to space warfare, adaptable, modular, incorporating the best technologies and tactical philosophies of multiple civilizations. Status report, she requested, studying the tactical display showing positions across 3 sectors of space. The Dravian forces have withdrawn from the Arcturus system, reported Minho, her human tactical officer. Their supply lines are stretched thin after our raid on their forward bases. Koro, the Trinary who had become her trusted advisor, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. They adapt too slowly. Each defeat teaches them little. This had become the pattern of the conflict. The Dravians and their allies relied on overwhelming force and established military doctrine. Jiwu's approach was entirely different, targeted strikes against military assets while carefully avoiding civilian casualties, followed by immediate humanitarian aid to affected worlds regardless of which side they supported. Their primary advantage remains the integrated communication network, Jiwu noted. They're coordinating their forces across vast distances more effectively than we can. The Council's ancient communication system, a network of quantum-entangled nodes that allowed near-instantaneous transmission across the galaxy, remained largely under Dravian control. This technological advantage allowed them to respond rapidly to Allied movements and coordinate their numerically superior forces. "We've detected unusual patterns in their communication protocols," said Sora, the ship's chief science officer. "There are inconsistencies in transmission delays that don't match the physical properties of the network." Jiwu turned to her with interest. "Explain." "The network should have consistent lag times based on quantum physics principles," Sora continued, displaying a complex diagram on the main screen. "But we're seeing variable delays that follow patterns unrelated to physical distance or transmission load, almost like something is prioritizing certain messages," Minho suggested. Jiwu's eyes widened slightly as a possibility formed in her mind. The network is 50,000 years old. What if it's not just hardware but includes some form of management system? And artificial intelligence? The bridge fell silent as the implications settled in. If such a system exists, Koro clicked slowly, could it be influencing communication patterns to favor certain outcomes? Or certain species? Jiwu added. "We need to investigate this immediately." A specialized team was assembled, human AI specialists, Trinary quantum engineers, and representatives from 3 other allied species with relevant expertise. They began a detailed analysis of the communication network, looking for signs of intelligent management beyond the known technical parameters. What they discovered shocked even the most cynical among them. The network was indeed managed by an ancient AI system, one that had been subtly manipulated over thousands of years to prioritize Dravian communications and occasionally alter message content in ways that supported Dravian interests. "The timestamps don't lie," Sora explained during the emergency briefing. "The manipulation began approximately 12,000 years ago, coinciding with the Dravian Empire's initial expansion period. It's been subtle enough that no one noticed, slowing communications from rival species during key diplomatic negotiations, prioritizing Dravian military commands during past conflicts, occasionally altering data in scientific exchanges to steer research away from technologies that might threaten Dravian superiority." "This explains so much about galactic history," one of the Allied commanders murmured. "The Dravians have been playing with loaded dice for millennia." Jiwu studied the evidence carefully. "We need to neutralize this advantage, but more importantly, we need to expose this manipulation to the galaxy. Many worlds support the Dravians because they believe they're preserving tradition and stability. This will shatter that illusion." The operation that followed was among the most complex of the entire conflict. While Allied forces engaged the main Dravian fleet near a disputed system, seemingly committing to a major confrontation, a small, specialized team infiltrated one of the primary network hub stations. The station, located in what had once been neutral territory, was heavily defended. The insertion team included specialists from 6 different species, each selected for particular skills. Their mission wasn't to destroy the hub, but to access its core systems and extract undeniable evidence of the long-term manipulation. Against all odds, they succeeded. The team downloaded thousands of years of system logs showing the pattern of interference and escaped with minimal casualties. Within hours, this information was broadcast across all available channels, bypassing the compromised network entirely. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Neutral worlds that had been hesitant to take sides suddenly condemned the Dravians. Several species that had allied with the Dravian-led Concord withdrew their support, citing the fundamental breach of trust that the manipulation represented. Most significantly, the evidence revealed that Admiral Doyon had been aware of the manipulation. Records showed he had accessed the EYE's control systems repeatedly, using them to suppress Council discussions about peaceful integration of humanity and to prioritize his own communications during the unauthorized planet killer deployment. The Dravian military position collapsed more quickly than anyone anticipated. Without their communication advantage and facing widespread condemnation, they found themselves isolated and outmaneuvered. Within weeks, their forces began surrendering or withdrawing to their core systems. On the bridge of the Harmony of Worlds, Ju watched the tactical display as former Dravian allies reached out to arrange surrender terms or declare neutrality. "Your strategy was correct," Koro observed. "By targeting their deception rather than their military strength, you've ended this conflict with minimal further bloodshed." Ju nodded thoughtfully. "The real challenge begins now. Rebuilding a galactic community based on truth and mutual respect after so much manipulation will not be easy." She looked around at the diverse crew of the flagship, humans working alongside beings from dozens of worlds, each contributing unique perspectives and capabilities. This collaborative approach, once deemed impossible by the Council, had proven more powerful than the rigid hierarchies the Dravians had fought to preserve. "But I think," she added with quiet confidence, "we have a good model to start with." The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Station gleamed with the light of 1,000 stars visible through its transparent dome ceiling. Representatives from over 400 species filled the tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle, symbolizing the equality that formed the foundation of the new order. At the center stood a simple platform, no raised dais, no ornate decorations, just a humble speaking area accessible to beings of all physical forms. Tahoe stood at the entrance, watching the gathering with a mixture of wonder and guilt. 5 years ago, he had commanded the fleet that kept humanity isolated from the galaxy. Now he served as the transition coordinator between former Council species and the emerging interstellar cooperative. The irony was not lost on him. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" said a familiar voice beside him. Tahoe turned to see Ju Han, dressed in the simple blue uniform that had become standard for human representatives. Her hair now showed streaks of gray, a reminder of the stresses she had endured leading humanity through war and into peace. "I never imagined this outcome," Tahoe admitted. "When your mining vessel first breached our quarantine, I predicted disaster." Ju smiled. "You weren't entirely wrong. The old order did collapse, but not in the way anyone expected," Tahoe finished. They'd walked together toward the center of the hall, passing delegations from worlds that had been bitter enemies just months earlier. The Dravians occupied a much smaller section than they once had, their empire reduced to their home systems after the revelations of their centuries-long manipulation. Their representatives sat stiffly, their exoskeletons polished to a high shine, as if compensating for their diminished status. "Admiral Doyon," Ju asked quietly. "Still in containment on Rehabilitation Station Alpha," Tahoe replied. The irony of using modified quarantine technology to hold him is not lost on anyone. They passed the Trinary delegation, where Koro raised his antennae in greeting. Nearby sat representatives from dozens of formerly marginalized species who had never held council seats under the old system. Their inclusion had been one of the first principles established in the cooperative's charter. "The transition reports show remarkable progress," Tahoe noted. 97% of inhabited systems have ratified the cooperative charter. Trade volume has already exceeded pre-war levels. Ju nodded. "The free exchange of technology and knowledge benefits everyone." That was always the flaw in the Council's approach, the belief that progress needed to be controlled and hierarchical. They reached the waiting area beside the central platform. In minutes, Ju would address the inaugural session of the Interstellar Cooperative, the first human to hold the position of first speaker. "Are you nervous?" Tahoe asked. Ju laughed softly. Compared to facing down a planet killer or commanding a war fleet, this is the easy part. A gentle tone sounded through the hall, signaling the beginning of the session. The ambient conversation faded as all attention turned to the center. A holographic display appeared above the platform, showing the new emblem of the cooperative, a spiral galaxy with hundreds of highlighted points representing member worlds, connected by flowing lines of communication and trade. First speaker Ju Han of Earth announced the session coordinator, a member of a crystalline species whose natural resonance made them perfect for the role. Ju stepped onto the platform, looking small against the backdrop of the massive assembly. Yet when she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner of the hall. Representatives of the Interstellar Cooperative, I stand before you with profound gratitude and hope. Just 6 years ago, my species was unaware of your existence. We gazed at the stars and wondered if we were alone, never imagining that a vast community of intelligent life was deliberately hiding from us. She paused, letting her gaze move around the chamber. The old council feared what humanity might become if we joined galactic society. They looked at our history of conflict, our rapid technological development, our adaptability, and saw only threat. They created barriers to contain us, believing isolation was the only safe response to difference. The former council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but Juwoo's tone held no accusation. Today, we gather to formally establish a new approach to galactic community, one based not on fear of difference, but on celebration of it. Not on containment and control, but on connection and collaboration. She gestured to the holographic display above. The Interstellar Cooperative is founded on 3 simple principles: transparency in all governance, equality among all sentient species, and shared advancement through knowledge exchange. Already, we have seen the benefits of this approach. The display shifted to show images of recent collaborative achievements: a new medical facility on a formerly neglected world at the galaxy's edge, a revolutionary clean energy system developed by a team from 12 different species, the restoration of an ecosystem damaged during the war, now thriving again. Our differences are not weaknesses to be feared, but strengths to be combined. Juwoo continued. Humanity's adaptability, the Trinary's precision engineering, Lentary energy manipulation, Jort philosophical frameworks. Each species brings unique gifts to our shared table. From his position at the side, Tahoe marveled at how completely his perception of humans had changed. The council had seen only the potential dangers of human integration. None had predicted that humans would become the catalyst for a more equitable galactic order. The quarantine that once surrounded Earth was built with advanced technology designed to isolate and contain. Juwoo said, "Today, we announce the completion of the quarantine repurposing project." The holographic display shifted again, showing the former barrier systems that had once surrounded Earth's solar system, now reconfigured into a vast communication and transit network. These same technologies will now protect developing species until they are ready for contact, not through deception, but through monitored boundaries and prepared introduction to the wider community. No sentient species should develop in isolation, but neither should they be overwhelmed before they are ready. Nods of approval rippled through the assembly. The treatment of pre-FTL civilizations had been a contentious issue under the old council, with some favoring permanent quarantine and others advocating for interference. The cooperative's middle path had gained wide support. As we open this inaugural session, Juwoo continued, I ask each of you to remember how we arrived at this moment. A simple mining ship broke through barriers that were never meant to be breached. A trading species chose honesty over deception. Warriors learned that strength can be found in restraint. She paused, her expression solemn. The war that ended just months ago cost lives on many worlds. The rebuilding continues. The wounds, both physical and diplomatic, will take time to heal. But already we see new connections forming where divisions once stood. The display shifted one final time to show a real-time map of interstellar communications, countless lines of light connecting worlds across the galaxy in a beautiful web of exchange. The attempt to quarantine Earth had an outcome no one predicted. In trying to contain one species, the Council created the very conditions that would ultimately lead to liberation for many. The barriers meant to keep humans isolated instead preserved our unique evolutionary path until the precise moment when that perspective was most needed. She smiled, looking around at the vast assembly of diverse life forms, some breathing different atmospheres in specialized environments, some floating in gravity fields, some towering 3 times her height, others barely visible to human eyes. "We were never meant to be contained," she told them, her voice steady and clear. "But neither were we meant to conquer. We were meant to connect." A moment of silence followed her words. Then, starting slowly and building to a crescendo, the assembly erupted in the various sounds of approval from hundreds of species: applause, clicks, resonant humming, like displays, and scent releases, all blending into a symphony of agreement. From his position, Taiho watched with a sense of profound relief. The catastrophe he had feared when humanity broke quarantine had indeed come to pass. But what emerged from that upheaval was not destruction but renewal. The rigid structures he had spent his career defending had crumbled, yet the galaxy survived. More than survived, it thrived. As the formal procedures of the inaugural session began, Tahoe slipped away to the observation deck. He looked out at the stars, seeing them not as distant points of light, but as connections in a vast network of possibilities. The quarantine had failed, and in that failure, a greater success had been found. The galaxy's plan to isolate humans had indeed backfired. Parts of the old order had burned away in the resulting conflict. But from those flames, something better had emerged. Not perfect, not without challenges, but alive with potential in a way the stagnant Council had not been for millennia. Tahoe smiled faintly. In the end, containing humanity had proven impossible. Perhaps that had always been the point.